for the California Pay Data Report. This obligation has been in place, I think, since 2020, that California employers have had to start filing these reports. And it's been updated recently as well, some new requirements. So it's important to note we can't just go back to last year's spreadsheet and use that same spreadsheet, update it, and resubmit it. So the new Excel spreadsheets that are being made available by the California CRD, it's similar, but they've updated it a bit. So we need to start from scratch, gather the information. We'll talk about how to look at certain snapshot periods, what information you're going to have to be gathering, but it's new and been amended a little bit. So you need to pay attention to these differences. So it really applies to employers with 100 or more employees. And as we've mentioned here on this slide, the filing deadline is May 8th, 2024. So we're coming up quickly on the deadline. And as a reminder on the slide, I put the federal EEO-1 reporting deadline. Don't forget about that. This year, it's June 4th to have your federal EEO-1 report submitted as well. So we won't be discussing that report, but it's similar information. So once you get through the California Pay Data reporting, gather that information, it should make that filing a lot easier. And so keep that in mind. And then on the federal level, the portal opens April 30th here shortly to start submitting that information. So keep that in the back of your mind. So as I mentioned, that California here, it applies to employers with 100 or more employees due May 8th. There's a few new changes to the law here that is going to modify the filing requirements here in 2024. One is that there's some additional information being required that employers have to report. The median and mean hourly rate for each combination of race, ethnicity, and sex within each job category. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, the details on that. And also employers that have 100 or more employees hired through a contractor have to submit a separate report for those workers, for those employees hired through a contractor. And also with employers with different establishments, and that could be different locations within the state, have to submit a report for each establishment. We'll be discussing that. And also for 2024, there's a new requirement on reporting the status for remote workers. If you have workers that are not routinely required to report to the office or one location. So those are some of the new issues that employers have to report here in 2024. Now, California started this reporting requirement to, one, help employers do a self-audit on their pay structure and to see if there's any pay gaps based on race, ethnicity, on gender. So this was started, and it's actually giving information over to the state. They're analyzing that data. They're actually producing reports each year on the data, and could lead to enforcement issues as well. So employers, we do recommend getting on this early, getting help, working with an attorney to make sure that there are no issues before you submit the report to the state. And if there are issues, what to do about that, how to start rectifying that so it doesn't lead to any kind of other enforcement issues. Yep. So, and then the question that comes up a lot here that I have on the slide is, the employers come to us saying, look, we're not gathering this information about the employee's ethnicity, race, and now sex, is becoming this whole issue on how an employee identifies for their sex. So there's this whole issue on how do you collect that information, and Vanita will discuss this as well. But the FAQs really that are published by the CRD say that the employer really needs to start with the employee's self-identification, asking them to voluntarily provide this information. And they do provide a sample statement that employers can provide to employees gathering this information. Then if the employee doesn't want to voluntarily provide it, they have other documents that you can look to, and I have it in that order. The CRD says go to current employment records first, see if you can determine the information. If it's not in that, look at other records. And then third and finally, the observer perception. So, and then you have to make a choice on the race and ethnicity. That's primarily where the issue is going to be. In the past, employers could say unknown, but that's not an option anymore. So the employer needs to make a call on that for the reporting purposes.